we are almost ready to get started. Oh, here we go. And it looks like both of them... Oh, no, there's red versions already. Flaffy has checked Link's house, and then Vault has gone straight to Sanctuary first.
The third crystal in Desert and the sixth one in Eastern.
Oh, nice. The 5th and 6th crystals, for anybody that's new to the randomizer, will allow you to get 2 chests later on in the pyramids. That's actually really big news.
Now, obviously, these guys have been on 2 different routes here, and looks like Flaffy is going into the early sewers here to go and take the items from Uncle in the first chest in there, while Vault just did the trick that's called the Holy Hand Room to go farm some rupees.
Now, there's a special trick that they've just recently come across where you have to jump into the lake right there a set number of times holding a certain direction, which is can be quite challenging to newer runners. I wasn't even aware of it myself until now.
Indeed, it's not very complicated per se, that specific setup, but it's something that you need to know. It's not something like you can just know about it from in-game stuff. Now, it looks like Flaffy did find Quake in this early sewers here, and Vault will find his Quake soon enough.
The wonderful Quack Medallion, while Flaffy is looking to go up towards the Agony Tree, which is the one item that you will get if you manage to beat Agnum, the very first encounter.
Ooh, and the lucky bomb drops from the crab. That's very useful.
Those critters can give you all sorts of random items, bombs actually being incredibly useful at this early stage of the game.
Indeed, they might not actually need to buy bombs early on if this goes very, very good in Kakariko, especially if they find a weapon.
Now, the Agony Tree only had 20 rupees in it, so Agnum may or may not be required in this scene.
Yep, you're right. We're still not sure if we're gonna see if it's useful as a Dark World portal, but we'll see soon enough if they find the Moon Pearl, the hammer, and the gloves, all those easy access to Dark World.
Now, Flaffy has gone and checked the mushroom location in the vanilla version, as well as the thieves' hideout, which didn't look like it had anything but a whole heart container in it, so still looking for a major weapon.
Indeed. Early on like that, we have very good resemblance in routes with just minor divergence, because Kakariko is always stacked. No matter what seed you're playing, there's always bound to be a few good items inside of here. So they always check it very early on.
Yeah, this is what we considered a standard route for open seeds, so all you need basically is about 3 bombs to check all of Kakariko, so most people get them out of this cave, or you can even buy some in Kakariko for 50 rupees.
Yeah, and that's why it's often, it may pay off to get the rupees in the Holy Hand Room to make sure you have enough money to buy those bombs and the bottle vendor item. Just because you're not assured to have all these rupees early on. Most of the time you do, but that's part of one of the gambles you can take early on, to go do the Holy Hand Room or not.
I think with such a trick powerful as that, I don't think it's really much of a gamble. It seems like more of a safety strategy that if you have a little bit of knowledge into it, you can definitely use it to get a leg up on the tournament.
That's true, but gambling is part of the randomizer, so it's all in the player's hands whether they want to make the gambles or play safely.
Too true, too true. Now, 4 chests in the well cave didn't pay off on this one, but we have the fighter's sword at our lovely bottle vendor for 100 rupees.
Now, that is a very early sword from OpenSea, and it's a very welcomed too, as a sword early on is it's one of the best weapons you can find, just because it opens up a few places around the world here and there, and it offers a very easy to use weapon.
We have Flaffy going into the back of the tavern, which has unlocked the hammer of all things.
Oh wow, the hammer there! It's now we have a powerful weapon and also an item that's very useful to go around as a key item, as she can now push down the pegs all around the world.
Plus, it also counts as a level 3 tempered sword, so you can actually use it to deal damage to a lot of bosses that you would normally have to do a lot longer or fighter sword.
Oh yeah, it's definitely useful as any bosses in the light world, and a lot of bosses in the dark world too. You'd rather use the hammer than the fighter sword, just because it does so much more damage.
This just in, Flaffy has discovered the mirror at Race Game. Now, Race Game doesn't have something very often, it seems, in this logic, so that's actually really exciting too.
This sea is starting to show its colors now, and we're seeing a very fast sea from what I see.
I have a feeling this is going to come down to execution over luck at this rate.
Yeah, it's looking more and more like it now. It's gonna depend to where they find the moon pearl, as the mirror by itself doesn't do much, but it is useful to erase blocks here and there.
Now, Flaffy looks like she's heading down towards the dam location, which also links pretty well over to the mini Moldorm cave, which is the Light Hype World cave. Light World Hype Cave.
Yeah. And you can see early on here, they diverge only slightly, and Flaffy still has a small advantage in time. But Vault has enough rupees right now to go check Zora if he wants to go check it early on with the fake flippers trick. We might see it go this way, while Flaffy might go somewhere else.
So that Zora play is actually not bad, because you can use the fake flippers mini glitch, which is you have to clip into it a certain way, similar to what Vault did with the Houlihan room, to force the game to think that you have flippers when you really don't.
I think it's gonna really come down to what they find in Moldorm Cave and Ice Cave, and from there they'll decide if it's worth it to go into Zora. Now, Flaffy does need at least 200 more to go check that, but a Moon Pearl would actually help her check also Waterfall Cave, because shenanigans.
Oh, speaking of the Moon Pearl, look what we just found in Light World Hype Cave. And the Magic Cape, and a bottle as well.
But just not a bottle, it's a bottle with a bee in it. Now, a lot of people tend to say that bee is not a very useful bottle item. I don't agree with that, as it's very useful in dark rooms when you don't know where enemies are.
And if you haven't practiced dark rooms, that might actually be a little bit of a safety and a saving grace for you as well, especially if you're newer to the game.
Oh yeah.
So Vault's heading and finishing the 5 items that are in the Light World Hype Cave, while Flaffy has opted to go to the Ice Cave, which in version 26 doesn't seem to have stuff very often.
True, but since it's a cave that's accessible technically from the start, it can hold a lot of different items in it. It doesn't look like it paid off for Flaffy this time, but you'd rather check it early on than have it on your mind for half the race.
Very true, very true. Now we are seeing Vault. Looks like Vault's going over to the Ice Cave as well.
Well, Flaffy might go check what Sarashvala has in store for her. And maybe an early Eastern check?
That wouldn't be a bad play considering the only thing that they're missing to complete the dungeon is the bow at this point. There's 3 items inside Eastern Palace and 3 items that are inside the hospital hut, plus the one that he holds onto for the green pendant. So there are a lot of items over here.
Indeed. It is true that Flaffy will encounter dark rooms, though.
And the green pendant is Ice Palace. That's actually a really nice dungeon to not have to worry about completing all the way.
Indeed, Ice Palace is a fairly long dungeon with very bad ice physics that tend to make a lot of players rage from it. But like you said, having it be a green pendant might be a saving grace for them to not go there. But it's still not confirmed though, because we still don't know what's on the pedestal.
So Flaffy looks like she has checked the hospital 3 chests, which didn't look like there was anything interesting inside of them. While Vault has chosen to fake flippers and is heading what looks like to Waterfall Cave in Zora.
Indeed, he's gonna be able to check what's on the island just here and what NPC under the bridge has too.
Speaking of, Vault's heading up to Hobo right now. Now, with the fake flippers glitch, something to note if you're going to attempt this is if something shoots you like an arrow or a Zora fireball, in the logic, since you are technically not supposed to be in the water, you immediately die.
Yeah, it's a dangerous trick to perform.
And Vault has found a sword upgrade at Hobo, while Flaffy is heading into the right side of Eastern Palace.
Oh, that gamble paid off. An early sword like that may be what they need to move on. As right now, it's well, I mean, the Master Sword is always required in every seed since you can't damage Ganon with only the Fighter Sword. But still, it's a very nice upgrade to have early on.
So something interesting on Flaffy, checking Eastern Palace, it looks like both the flippers and the Cave of Burna were already in there. So that's 2 of the 3 items, and they were pretty major ones.
Yeah, the Cane of Burna is going to be quite useful if they tend to go into Thieves Town early on, as blind can be really, let's say it can be cheesed really easily by just using the cane for most of the fight.
Either of the canes will actually do wonders against that fight. There are wonderful strategies to use against her. We have a big chest check from Flaffy, which is just the burrito. That's unfortunate.
Now it looks like she will attempt to go through the dark rooms here to go to the vanilla big key chest, which is not a very hard dark room to go through, but still, I'm gonna say good on her to go through this because learning dark rooms is not easy by any means.
So just an arrow upgrade from Zora, and it looks like that the lamp was actually on the ledge over in Zora's domain, so Flaffy has a little bit of a decision to make as to what she wants to do.
Indeed, because early on not having the lamp is not a big deal, but it can be later on when they need fire sources in different dungeons such as Tower of Hera and Desert. And as long as they don't have the lamp, they don't have the light cone in every dark room in the game. And these early ones are not that bad, but the later ones, like the ones in Hyrule Castle and Meyer, are very hard to go through.
So just a bomb upgrade for the 3rd item in Eastern Palace, so Flaffy is safe, quitted out of there, and is heading back to Link's house to move onwards.
At least she knows there isn't any more items in Eastern right now, so that's a dungeon she can keep later on, especially if she routes in Palace of Darkness and Eastern at the same time, if Palace of Darkness is useful to go in the first place. But yeah, it's a dungeon she'll keep for later on, as there is nothing more inside of it.
So Flaffy figuring out just that the ledge that was in... the arrows. Oh no.
getting trolled a bit.
Just a little bit. And Flaffy's going to find her Master Sword as well. As Vault is actually going into Eastern Palace and will come across the 3 items by the looks of it that Flaffy just did. So
Now,
Flaffy has returned to her house again.
Now, I believe she'll probably go into Hyrule Castle next because their location is slowly diminishing from what they can check right now. Without the glove and or the flute, there's not a lot of places these runners can go to.
There is only the 2 items that are on Death Mountain that she can access right now with the mirror. And Tower of Hera, that's the options are starting to run dry that this might be Agnum required.
It might be at this point because if they don't find the glove early on, they don't have a very good way to go to the Dark World.
That is very true. As the Titan's Mitts and or Hammer plus Power Glove is required to get into the west side of Thieves Town in the Dark World. We have Vaults heading through the skeleton room on the way to where is the compass chest. And finds the big key. We also have Flaffy going through the rest of Escape, which there is about 5 or 6 items in Escape, so there's actually a lot that you can access, especially with bombs now. We find a piece of heart.
Now it's going to be interesting if Flaffy counts the items here, or not maybe count the item, but see what she's found so far. As in each dungeons in the game, there's always going to be a map and a compass and a big key inside of it. So if you know how many treasures you got, you can sometimes predict where items will be. And if you know that there's only 2 chests left and you know you didn't get the map and the compass, well, you can skip those chests safely.
Nice bomb strats from Flaffy clearing out the room with the Spin Mace Guardian that held Zelda's cell, and she also found the blue mail inside of there, so having an armor upgrade is going to be a real big edge too.
Indeed, it's one of those safeties that I tend to get myself in every scene. Blue mail reduces damage a lot in the Dark World, and it's it's very useful later on.
Now, some of the critters in the Dark World will actually hit you for up to 4 hearts of damage, like the infamous murder birds, but having the blue mail having it down to 2 hearts, especially in early game like this, can be a real big lifesaver.
Indeed. Now we see Flaffy going into the desert, which there's not much she'll be able to see there, apart from what the item on the ledge is and what's in Agana's cave.
The infamous Agnes Cave, of which has caused the demise of some of our runners in general in this tournament, is definitely not being skipped over by Flaffy. She is going to bomb that opening and find out what's in there as Vault heads over to Zora. Actually, to the ledge again. Which the ledge, if you remember, has the lamp on it, so that's actually a real big pickup too.
Yeah,
but just 5 rupees.
Yeah, Agana's cave is a bit like a ice cave where most items can spawn there, and it's a very trolly location.
Now let's see where Flaffy is heading to. Back to she's already picked up the sword upgrade and the bomb upgrade. Maybe she's heading over to the forest by the looks of the warp. As Vault has restarted over from Sanctuary.
It looks like Flaffy will be checking the waterfall cave and then Zora herself now, which we'll be able to do in one go since she hasn't been to Zora first with fake flippers like Vault did.
Now she just got lucky and found the last 100 rupees that she needed to go actually talk to Zora. But she's going to find out that this is a really unfortunate life lesson. But the ledge is definitely more helpful than Zora is himself.
Indeed.
Now, Vault has checked Sick Kid, but I didn't see what the item was. Did you?
I'm sorry?
Did you see what the Sick Kid had there when Vault checked it just a second ago?
Only rupees.
Only rupees. That's unfortunate. Meanwhile, it looks like Vault is actually going to go make the same gamble that Flaffy did and check the Tyrell Castle basements.
Yeah, at this point, there's not a lot of items that are left to check. As chat pointed out, there's a back of escape left to check there. And after that, they're pretty much going to be locked into going into, again.
Yep, there's the 4 chests that are in the basement, which 3 of them are accessible through the power glove next to Sanctuary, which neither of them have, so they'll have to go actually take the long way if they want to go check those last 3. Which is something Flaffy looks like she's heading towards herself, so coming up on a dungeon high 5 here.
Yeah, let's hope that the power gloves are in the back end of escape, because this is going to save them a few bit of time here. I believe it takes around 4 to 5 minutes to go through all of Hyrule Tower, and it doesn't offer you much other than the Dark World access.
Which is something they're going to need, since now that they have the Moon Pearl, they can actually start exploring a little bit of Dark World as well, especially with the hammer.
Oh yeah, it's going to be pretty opened up, and all of the right side will be opened up into Palace of Darkness, Catfish, Hype Cave, and a few more locations around there.
So Flaffy has discovered the burrito in Castle Escape. There is no compass or big key down here, so the other 3 chests actually will have something in them by the looks of it. As Vault gets the big key for Zelda's cell and finds the blue mail.
I'm calling a flute in the back here.
I'll take a glove upgrade. But we're about to find out as Flaffy's actually opening up that with a bomb right now. Here we go. Yeah, blue rupees, more cash, and the bow. That's interesting as well.
Did not expect the bow.
That reopens Eastern Palace for sure, and actually will open up Palace of Darkness as well. So that's 5 items that they can go ahead and grab too.
Yeah, unfortunately, the bow doesn't open up more items per se right now, so they'll need to go into and fight Aghanim inside of Hyrule Castle. Or go in. No, they can't go into the back of Kakariko because they still need the power glove to go there.
So with Death Mountain still blocked off because there's no ocarina, it's starting to look like a little bit of a troll seed here.
Yep, and Flaffy will receive a few rupees from the sick kid and realize that there's not much else she can go.
And she shoots the poor sick kid, putting him out of his misery as she realizes that Aghanim looks to be required in the seed. So it looks like both of them are going to high 5 again as they enter Hyrule Castle. And Vault realizes, yeah, it's better to do it now than later, so... So what's inside these chests that are actually inside for going up towards Aghanim, if you remember, Dynasty?
Don't remember.
Well, something that, of note for anybody that goes up to Agnum 1, that all the little chests have just keys in them. There actually are no items in this dungeon other than the one you get on top of the pyramid for when you finish. And this dark room that vaults in is actually really a little bit complicated if you don't have a lantern, but fortunately both of them do now.
Yeah, it's one of the rooms that if you don't have the flute by now, Agaham won't be required, as the logic does not include you going into dark rooms at any time.
Which is a good thing because these are pretty confusing without a light source of the lantern, so. Vault's using up quite a bit of ammo there. Doesn't have but 15 arrows left to last for a little while. Let's hope there's some good arrow drops coming up just to refill that supply.
Yeah, fortunately for them, there's a few spots inside of Palace of Darkness they can pick up arrows, but they also use a bunch of arrows inside the Mimic Room.
Oh yeah, switch the Mimic Room. The Mimics come in red and blue varieties. The blue or the green varieties only require 1 arrow, while the red ones require 2, plus the red ones will shoot you if you look at them, so that's actually rather painful.
Oh yeah, and unless you have the mirror shield, you're not blocking them. So you might as well try to dodge them, but they also might dodge your arrow. So there's a bit of manipulation you can do to get out of the way and just hit them anyway, but it's not very fun to fight them in general.
Now both of them using arrow strats in Agnum's tower here, which they're both pretty low on ammo, even though Vault just picked up another 5. Plus, I believe there's more in here that he may be able to use. Yep, there's one. There's 2 even. No ammo shortages here now. As they are just 1 floor apart now by the looks of it.
Yeah, turns out to be a very close race so far. So, yeah, it's definitely a very hype race they've given us.
Now, since Agnum was required for this seed, that makes it interesting on what could be on the pyramid that they can use as a progression item, if anything at all. Because
Well,
doing Agnum 1 opens up Catfish as well.
Yeah. But, since they do have the bow and the hammer, as we said earlier, they can pretty much complete all of Palace of Darkness. So I think their progression item will probably be in there.
Hopefully so, they don't have to travel too far for it. Otherwise, we might see a bit more of a troll.
Vault is already fighting Aghanim.
Mm-hmm. Now, I believe it's 6 magic hits in order to defeat Agnum 1 and 2 now. Agnum will also troll you like this with these exploding blue balls that actually don't do any damage and will hurt you quite a bit if you actually get hit by them.
Ah, yes, that's the RNG part of the fight where you just have to try to go on and just not get hit by those. If you stand at the side like Vault is doing, you'll never get hit. So it's a pretty easy fight.
The positioning is definitely important as another blue ball troll. Now, something of note, the amount of blue balls versus regular magic shots is determined in the seed itself and is the same for both runners. So Volta is defeated while Flaffy is just starting Agnum, and here we go. We're going to find out what's on the pyramid right now. Get your guesses in.
Maybe a shovel or something like that.
Oh, that would be beautiful. Or the magic powder even. And we just find money. The exodus continues. As Flaffy looks to be only a 1 hit or so away from actually defeating Agnum.
Well, looks like Vault is making the play to go inside of Palace of Darkness, and we have a pendant in Turok and the green pendant in Ice Palace, as we already knew from Sahasrahla.
Also, a Crystal 5 in pod there could be pretty big for the Fat Fairy that's locked behind both of those crystals.
Oh yes, and this is going to make some very good routing for Vault, and probably Flaffy too, as when he completes Palace of Darkness, he can simply use the mirror and complete Eastern right away.
And Flaffy is going to get really harsh reality that there is nothing of interest here on this Agnum play, even though it was required. As Vault is getting ready to pay the Kiki the Monkey 110 rupees to enter Palace of Darkness, which with 5 items is definitely a smart play, all things considered what's accessible in the overworld right now.
Indeed, they could have went also inside of Swamp, but since we, as we told earlier, making the play for going into Palace of Darkness and then completing Eastern is probably the best routing they can go with right now.
Considering the dungeons can be done back to back like that with just the bow and the hammer, yes, this is definitely the smartest of plays, as Swamp does require a hook shot in order to fully complete it as well.
Indeed. Now, one thing that's also interesting is since Eastern and Palace of Darkness are both the 5th and 6th crystal, they may be checking what's inside of the pyramid with the big bomb soon after, which is
Oh no,
pretty early.
Flaffy.
Kiki ran away.
Yep, if you get hit by anything, you immediately lose Kiki, and Kiki will take another 10 rupees from you just to become your best friend again, because he is trying to feed his family too.
At least it's only 10 rupees, which sometimes can be bothersome if you're really tight on money.
Yeah, Sora and buying bombs and such early with the bottle vendor, it's basically 650 rupees right there, and if you're running short, it can be a really, really harrowing experience trying to get into Palace.
Which is why the hooligan room is still a thing, because all that worry about money is not a thing when you do that most of the time.
Now Flaffy entering into the middle section as Vault has entered into the bow side of things, which again, 4 shots with a 5 arrow refill right there. There's no ammo lost. Flaffy opening up the jellyfish room that Vault has just entered into, so there is a bombs throw from a high 5 as well. Which the big key was in that, so that was definitely a requirement.
Yeah, the routing through Palace of Darkness can be rough, but at least they both have the mirror right now, which makes things a lot less scarier.
Now, these wonderful octopi here are quite trolly, especially the red ones, as they require 4 hammer shots to kill, which is not the option that Vault is actually taking. Vault was just smacking it with the sword instead, which did take quite a bit longer. Oh, there we go. There's some hammer strats.
There's just so much he could take from them.
Vault just got sick of just smacking them, so it just went completely crazy. And looks to be setting up to bomb jump over. Oh, and successfully does so, but only 20 rupees as a reward from the big key chest.
That was still a very, very cool bomb jump scene from Volt here. It's not an easy tactic to go for.
Amazing technical display, but by the looks of it, Flaffy cannot do the same as she is currently out of bombs.
I believe there's bombs inside these skulls here, but I could be wrong.
And also a triple bomb pickup out of the dark room on the left-hand side leading up to the big key chest, so she is not completely out of hope. As Vault heads into the basement with all the money in it.
Yeah, so far Palace of Darkness has not been paying off. Surely there's something good in these chests here. Come on, game, give us a bone or something.
How about another bottle? That should be pretty interesting for you to use.
It's useful, but not a very good progression item as they already checked Sick Kid.
And the mini Helmosaurs, part of the trio of the most lethal enemies in the game, has caused Fluffy to take a stage dive and have to restart the bridge room.
Yeah, not an easy room to go through, especially without boots.
Just a piece of heart from the spike trap room, which is going to cause Fluffy to go downstairs as well and find that other bottle. As Vault has taken a little bit of a lead here and is going towards the basement with our Helmosaur King. Another 4 arrows right here.
Now, I haven't been counting the items in this dungeon, but I think there's still the map to be found.
If we are able to see a pause break, we'll know for sure, but for now, it's easy to guess that there's not much left. Oh, that was already found. Okay. Thanks to our wonderful chat for paying attention. And there's the bombs that Flaffy would have needed.
Oh yes, so indeed it was confirmed right here too on the pause screen. So that means Helmosaur does have an item.
And this could be a progression item where it could be a complete troll. We'll find out shortly.
Because if it's a troll, then Catfish might have something useful for a change.
For a change indeed. I haven't seen that happen in a long time. So Flaffy is heading back towards the basement for Helmosaur King as Vault has quite a little bit of a lead here.
Indeed, but we do have to remember that this lead is very small so far, and Vault hasn't checked what's in the desert in Agnes Cave. So if he goes there later on, it's not a lot of time between these two players.
No, you're right. This is a very close race indeed. As Vault has gone to using the hammer by itself just to deal with Helmosaur King. Now, part of the strategy that Vault has just remembered to grab was to use the sword to extend the range of the hitbox of the hammer to actually get hits in a lot easier and to stabilize yourself from getting bounced around everywhere. As we're going to find out what the item is right now.
And Helmosaur goes down.
We have ourselves just 20 rupees. Here we go again.
So now we'll see if he either goes up to go to Catfish, which I just remember he can't because he doesn't have the glove. So it's probably going to be Hype Cave and Stumpy.
The options are so limited in this progression. Oh, Vault's remembering that Crystal's number 5 was the Eastern Palace. So here we go. We might get a Fat Fairy check coming up real soon too.
Yep.
As Flaffy has heading down to Helmosaur King and is having a pretty easy time with the little turtle rocks. Now, the turtle rocks can be a little bit of a danger to you too, because using the hammer to flip them over while they're in proximity of each other will reset the other ones, which they hit pretty hard if you get run into by one of them.
Yeah, they're very trolly, and getting the right pattern on them to not flip them all over again, it's not easy. Keep saying that, but you know, Randomizer isn't easy overall. So shout outs to these players who are giving us a wonderful match so far and doing a great job.
They are both doing amazingly well while considering what the logic has given them, and it seems to be drawing itself in a pretty linear fashion, so we have Flaffy doing Helmosaur King on the second stage, which almost mirrors back. That would have been really, really unfortunate. But she manages to take him down and will find just a little bit of allowance. Now Vault heading up to Armos Knights, which will take quite a bit of ammo, but Vault has no worries about that anymore since this is very generous for arrow drops in Eastern Palace.
It looks like he might want to get a few more like that, just because after you leave with Armos, you're not left with a lot of arrows. So to continue on in the game, if you don't want to rely on arrow drops, might as well farm a bit here.
That's actually a really good strategy that I don't think many people really employ. As Flaffy is also heading towards Armos Knight. We only found ourselves a bowl of nachos at the Armos Knight drop, so at least we have the crystals to go to Fat Fairy with. But Vault choosing to go back into... Oh, no, there's the save and quit.
Yeah, and saving quitting inside the Dark World when you already cleared Aghanim resets you on the pyramid, which can be both useful and detrimental depending on where you want it to go.
Very much so, as looks like Vault's heading towards the Dark World version of the Hype Cave, another 5 items possible. So let's see what route they're taking right now. Oh, no, there's Hype Cave.
Let's go, Hype Cave. Give us a flute.
2 bombs into 5 items. Here we go. Let's roll the dice and see what we get. The Power Glove. Oh dear. So that was a Hype Cave indeed, with just a bunch of money, but the Power Glove was definitely something they needed at this point.
Indeed. Whenever Hype Cave gives out something you need, it's always hype. I mean, it's not version like 18 where you found like four progression item in it, but it's pretty good.
And while picking the 100 rupees into buying our little orange is quite destructive, but it's also liable to like become detached from you if you press the A button too much. So you gotta be really careful in handling this thing because 100 rupees can be very expensive.
Now, since they've cleared Aghanim, they can use this quick warp here to save a bit of time over bringing the bomb to the pyramid.
Saves about a minute right there. That's pretty exciting. So, Fat Fairy, what do you have for us today as Flaffy looks to be leaving Eastern Palace as well? Red mail and just 20 rupees, but red mail is actually quite important too. It halves the damage you take again.
Yeah, especially since these guys have not been very lucky so far with their hearts. Red mail is a welcome addition to survive these later Dark World dungeons.
Looks like Flaffy might be heading towards, yep, I think she's thinking the same things, checking out Hype Cave and possibly Fat Fairy as well. Now, with the hammer and mirror, looks might be interested in either checking out some more of South Hyrule in the Dark World, or possibly going into Swamp at this point.
Yeah, at this point it's a bit of a gamble to where to go, but I believe going to Swamp is still rather useful. Might want to check with Stumpy and the digging game first, just to get them out of the way.
Not to mention the reverse mirror cave which is what Vault is actually choosing to go access right now, which has had quite a few decent items in this logic.
Oh yes, that's true. It's the cave I tend to forget about myself.
Just a piece of heart in this one, but we've seen in the past during the tournament the bow and quite many other important items, so not as fortunate for Vault and Flaffy this time, but we never know what our flute playing friend here is going to give us.
What are those?
Oh, we have ourselves some fast mode going on here. Not quite go mode, but it makes everything a lot easier finding those boots at our wonderful flute playing friend here, as Vault is actually going to go check the digging game.
So now we've got to we gotta be a bit faster now with those, and it opens up a few locations here and there, notably Bonk Cave, and since they do have the mirror, they might also go inside of King's Tomb. But they'll need to go way around the world to go inside that place, since the only portal that's accessible is going to be behind Kakariko Village.
Now, Flaffy is going to go find her red mail. The King's Tomb does require the either the mirror or the Titansmiths in order to access, and with logic burying things that deep, it can or cannot be really useful sometimes.
And as you can see in Vault screen, there's guards all over the place now, and they're not green guards anymore, they're blue guards, and some place even has red guards. That's a side effect of beating Agahim. The whole light world, overworld, has different enemies on it, and more enemies, so it kind of impedes sometimes because they're more in the way. So it's definitely something to think about when you need to do Agam, because it does make all of the overworld take more time and is a bit more dangerous.
Looks like Flaffy is interested in going to the dark world as well now that she has the power glove. Well, looks like Vault's heading towards Skullwoods.
Definitely a good play on his part. Skullwoods tend to be pretty stacked in this version.
With only 2 items in Skullwoods, the chances of you getting something useful doesn't seem to be there with item count wise, but with it being what looks to be a crystal dungeon, it might need to be done anyways.
Yeah, Vault won't be able to complete the dungeon at this time, as you do need the fire rod to complete it. But there's a few locations he can check over here.
Now, the room to the south of Vault will always have a key in it due to the game's vanilla logic, so there's nothing to check down there as Vault is heading over to the left side. As Flaffy is caught straight up and is also checking Skullwoods as well.
Looks like they listened to my words of wisdom.
The commentator's blessing, not the commentator's curse. Now, since they don't have the Cane of Samaria, they're going to have to take the old route with the statues, and these mummies can be quite a bit trolly, plus they hit for a lot even with red mail on.
Yeah, as you can see, it's making the room so much harder to go through, and very trolly too, with that Wallmaster falling from the ceiling.
Wallmaster almost grabbing Vault there as they managed to successfully. Oh no, they got grabbed. Oh no.
That is unfortunate. It tends to happen here and there, just because the Wallmaster is always where you don't want him to be, and that is above you.
Just like MasterCard, it's everywhere you don't want it to be. Oh no, Vault gets grabbed again. It's only a one-room setback, but having to drag the statue each time has caused Flaffy to come up, and they are really neck and neck right now. Oh, Flaffy got... Oh, no, Flaffy just missed it. Magic Cape strats to avoid the Wall Master. Quite ingenious and not really well thought of all the time. Now we're finally going to find out what's in that chest that Vault has been unsuccessful in getting so far, which is the big key. So Flaffy is going to go check the big chest by the looks of it.
Vault took a few too many hits to those Gyptos here, but he did have a fairy to help him out.
And Vault gets grabbed again. Oh no. This room has been very, very brutal so far, but seeing what you're supposed to do with it, I can see where the pain is coming from right now.
Yeah, there's a bit of momentum change here between the players, but it's still not too bad.
No, they're still keeping it neck and neck, which is actually quite exciting for everyone that's here. Myself included, I'm super hyped right now.
Oh yeah, especially since Flaffy just picked up a mushroom. Fetch quest items are always fun to pick up.
Oh, here we go. Fetch quest type. And it looks like Vault is choosing to bomb jump over to the big chest, completely skipping the... Oh, just missed it. Skipping the other entrance, which could save a little bit of time.
There we go. Second try, first try, every try.
Something to note when you do the bomb jumps, if you dash into a wall, it extends the hitbox in which you are able to bomb jump over these pits. So, very, very useful. Looks like Flaffy is going to head into Thieves Town, though. Oh, nope, just opening the entrance. A little bit of a route divergence while Vault is going to go check Magic Cape Cave, and Flaffy has opened up the chest opening game.
Yeah, I do like Vault's way of checking things, as you don't know what could be on Bumper Cave for a long time, since there's not much to do up there other than setting up for a graveyard cave check.
Which is actually really interesting if you go along north side where the sanctuary is, because that does tend to chain into multiple things, because you have the graveyard and then you can go ahead and jump into King's Tomb if you have the boots.
Indeed. It's one thing to be able to do a lot of things, but knowing where everything is also a great skill to have in Randomizer. You can save a lot of time overrun just by knowing where things are.
Something interesting to note as of this point is that Vault does have the boots. Flaffy has not gone to pick them up yet, so that might make Thieves Town a little bit slower for her. Just 3 bombs in that chest, nothing interesting there. And we find the fire rod in the sea room house in Thieves Town, so... one more progression item for the list. So since they both have a hammer, they can actually full clear the dungeon. It looks like Flaffy just found the silvers.
Yeah, that's a very good... I'd say safety, because they are technically required, but there's ways around that you can kill Ganon without silvers anyway, but it still makes a lot of bosses in the Dark World much easier to deal with.
And Flaffy, just trolling right along with this seed, found 3 of the 4 items in Thieves Town already, so there may or may not be a requirement for going into that hammer peg room. As Vault finds the silvers as well. And we'll get a nice big money boost right here with another 300 rupees. So even though Flaffy doesn't have the boots, they are still incredibly close.
Oh yes, they have been going at a very good pace so far, and Flaffy looks like her execution is slightly better than Vault, but her routing makes her not having the boots means every minute that goes by, Vault can catch up a bit more.
Scary thought in the back of your mind. Why haven't I found the boots yet to actually help me get through this game a little bit faster? It's like it's in the back of your mind. What does my opponent possibly have that I don't? That could be forcing me to drop into a hole.
Oh yeah, all of these movement options, the boots, the flute, the mirror, and even the hookshot at a point. They're all very good movement options, but when you don't have them, you keep wondering, just like you say, does my opponent have them?
And we are into the grasshopper room, which has caused the death of many runners because those grasshoppers hit for about 2 hearts apiece, so they are quite painful to the touch.
Oh yeah, and they do tend to park themselves just in front of the door, just to make things a bit a bit longer.
They just want a hug, that's all they want. It's not asking too much, is it?
Well, during a run, might be.
Flaffy going to pick up the maiden, and we're going to see ourselves a bit of right here, which one's going to be leading who? Which blind is leading the blind?
Double maiden.
Flaffy skipping the chest in there. Maybe she thinks it's the small key that's for the hammer pig. And Vault skipping that chest too, so I think they both figured it out that this hammer pig room may not be necessary.
Since neither of them have found the map and the compass, they picked right. So good on them for counting.
Very fortunate indeed, as it does save a little bit of time there. Not too much, but every little bit does help.
Indeed, because you can see by yourself that they're both in the same room right now. So every second counts.
And this turns into a bit of a Toho shmup with this one, with fireballs going everywhere, but Flaffy making short work of it thanks to that Cane of Brian that doesn't get used all that much. Very smart routing.
Oh, yes, as I usually say, don't forget about your safeties because I'd rather use a few more seconds to use safeties than lose minutes trying to go back to that boss.
The bowl of nachos from Blind, so it looks like they're both done with this dungeon. Makes you wonder where they're gonna go next.
Well, at this point, I think Flaffy will go south and do the digging game, Stumpy, and the cave at the grove. And that's about it. Maybe Vault will go back into Skull Woods since he found the fire rod.
Interesting train of thought there. They haven't found half magic, so their items for magic against Mothula are a little bit on the small side, so that might be something holding them back right now.
Looks like Vault decided to go do Bump Caves. He might be persuaded to go check all of those northern items, and maybe after that we'll see a Death Mountain check because they do have all the items required to go up.
Now, interesting in the version 26 logic is that it doesn't exactly think that you need the lantern to go find the old man that's lost in the caves, which is really interesting. All you need is the ocarina or the gloves for that. So it'll hide some pretty interesting items on Death Mountain too.
Oh, yes, but since they do not have the mitts or the hookshot, part of the mountain is still locked. But it's fine. Still, there's a few more items they can check, and there's also a Tower of Hera that's available.
Flaffy finally getting her boots, so now they're pretty much caught up to each other. This is still neck and neck. It's so exciting. You are definitely right, though, in the fact that putting off Death Mountain for so long has been pretty advantageous to them, since making multiple trips up it can be a huge time sink.
And the single green rupee in King's Tomb.
So not much making in the graveyard play, but that's gonna lead Flaffy, looks probably up to Death Mountain, possibly. Yep, there she goes. Checking Bonk Cave as well. Looks like Volta's heading over to Catfish, possibly. Or to turn in the Mushroom.
Yeah, those are two good things to do in the same way here. After that, though, he will be needing to go up Death Mountain, I think, because there are rather losing, not losing time, but there's not a lot of locations left down in Hyrule here.
That is very true. Just a piece of heart for the Mushroom, so not much of a check there. But Volta's stocking up on those potions, so it's very, very handy. Takes the heart anyways, though, on the way out.
I mean, why not? They still don't have a lot of hearts so far.
Flaffy helping out the poor lost old band, gets a heart, and that's the other part about going up to Death Mountain early, is it helps you warp back up a whole heck of a lot easier.
Oh yes, and that can play a huge role overall if you have unlocked that or not.
So interesting play here. Let's see what's at Catfish versus what's on Spectacle Rock. And just money for Catfish didn't pay off for Vault at all. Unfortunate.
Nothing much inside of it either. So they'll be skipping that and go directly maybe into Tower of Hero. Maybe we'll see a Spike Cave check right here.
That would be interesting, although Flaffy doesn't have any spare magic, so the Spike Cave check may not be the best call right now, but she is going to pick up that arrow upgrade on the top, because you never know when you could find silvers. Oh wait, they already did.
The dead rock blocking their way into Hera.
And the frustration.
Yeah, that is very frustrating.
I share your pain, Flaffy, I really do. 2 items in Tower of Hera now, and the big key means that basement may not be required on this one.
Let's hope so, as my recent runs have always required the basement. Because item placement...
And the basement will cost you about a minute's worth of time, as she does find the small key that's here, which heading upstairs could possibly mean she finds both items, hopefully in chests or on Moldorm, instead of having to go into that basement. As Vault heads to guide the old man back to his home. Now it links to the question, how does he eat and where does he go shopping? Does he go back down to Kakariko, or they never explain that?
Well, he has his ways, I guess. It's an old man living on Death Mountain. I wouldn't ask too much questions if I were you.
As Flaffy finds one of the items that's a sword upgrade, so she now has a tempered sword. No need to go back to the hammer.
Ah, yes, that's the item you want. That gives you a lot of breathing room, as having tempered for a lot of these bosses will make it much easier, much faster, and of course it's going to make the Ganon fight a lot easier too, since you don't need to do charge attacks on him.
Something interesting to note is that it seems like the bowl of nachos or the last item will be on Trolldorm right here, so let's hope that Flaffy doesn't have too much difficulty with this boss. Oh, then she gets bounced out of the arena. Oh no.
Trolldorm here does not want anybody in his arena.
Nope, and showing Flaffy just how alone that Moldorm wants to be. So unfortunate. Let's see if Vault takes the small key as a sign to go into the basement or not.
It's like Flaffy is using the cape strats instead and making her life easier.
Very much so. Now, when you hit Voldorm enough, it does tend to get really angry, but she gets really, really awesome placement with that last spin strike and finishes it off. And we find the piece of heart, basement not required.
Yep, that's these runners got lucky. Basement was denied today.
Something that our chat may or may not have be wanting them to go into, just for the troll lulz. And then Vault finding his temper sword upgrade. Interested in taking the bomb strats to jump back across. Saves a little bit of time over that.
Whiskey strats. As if you fall down this hole, you lose a lot of time for the time you gain.
Oh, and there we go. That is probably one of the harder bomb jumps as I've seen, that's causing Walt to go back down 2 floors. As Flaffy goes into Spiral Cave, which in version 26 has not paid off for hardly anything over all the runs we've seen so far.
It's interesting that Vault decided to not check any more inside of Hera here and just went away from it, which does make a small difference in time. Of course, it is a time save per se inside of Tower of Hera, but we still don't know if pedestal is required. If it is, he just lost a bunch of time.
That is the call that was in the back of Walt's head. Do I really need to blind pull pedestal? Or do I just... Oh, speaking of blind pull, there's the book. Can actually see what's on the pedestal now instead of just taking all that time to get all 3 dungeons.
Well, it still might be a blind pull for Flaffy, because, you know, Sprite.
True. Vault taking the the Death Mountain 7 chest gamble here, as Flaffy high fives and has doing the same thing right now. Mini troll dorms causing a little bit of a hindrance, but not too much. We have ourselves the magic powder. Big money, no whammy, stop. Nope, just the magic powder. Still, that's actually really useful in terms of survivability, so that's a welcome addition to any player's inventory. As we see Vault bomb jumping back over across that pit to save a lot of time on going back up the mountain.
Now it looks like Flaffy is opting to go look at Ether Tablet, and so is Vault.
Such close routing decisions, they both must be...
Or not.
Hopefully not. And Flaffy going into Spike Cave now, which is going to take quite a bit of torture since no magic upgrades. Just a piece of heart from the Ether Tablet.
And that's quite a gamble that Flaffy did make here, not checking Ether. It's a long way to go check that place up again.
Unfortunately, the Spike Cave gamble didn't pay off as there was just 3 bombs inside of it, but that's one less thing that's in the back of your mind of what did I skip, what can I be missing?
And I think that last item from Tower of Hero is waiting on Vault's decision to go back in it.
Making the choice to jump out of Tower of Hera and then back into it was a little bit of interesting decision, I think.
Indeed. It's rather fortunate for him that he found the book and had an extra reason to go back this way.
And Vault's going to try the bomb jump again. Let's see if he's successful. There's much less space to actually pull this one off, though, so it's definitely hard. Flaffy looks to be going back to Thieves Town.
Yeah, it looks like Vault is going to take the long way to this chest now. Still be a bit disappointed for him from it having, I believe, was a map in it.
It was not the best of chess, but getting that out of the back of your head that this was all for nothing, yeah. It's better just to write that one off and continue on like it never happened. So Flaffy looks like she's going into Skullwoods now.
Yep, she's already been into the first part of it. Now she's going to be looking at the last part of it, and will be able to defeat Mothula quite easily, I think.
Now, Mothula's a little bit of a challenge if you don't have some decent reserves in your inventory, but she actually opts to go check Magic Cave now. It's
She's
just
not
a piece of heart.
It's not bad routing, because you, like we said earlier, like having the information of knowing there's nothing useful there is it's pretty good.
And it's something that you could be thinking in the back of your head, oh hey, my done this. Here's my information advantage. Flaffy making her pass through will find just 300 rupees and then the 1 rupee in King's Tomb if she opts to go into.
No, I can't wait for either of these runners to go check pedestal. I'm getting a bit jitters here from maybe having something very good on pedestal, such as a hook shot, a flute, or even a medallion.
That's right, we haven't really seen what's required in either Mire or Turtle Rock since they don't have the Titan Smiths yet, so this is starting to get a little bit concerning for pedestal hype.
Now, there's still a few more locations they can check, such as inside of Swamp. There's a few chests in the beginning on the what we usually call left side of Swamp. There's 2 chests there. There's one just below the big key chest, the big chest, and one at the beginning. If they're lucky and find the big key early on, there's also the big key chest.
That's very true. There's a lot of opportunities there that neither of them decided to actually go check out, which they may decide to do instead of just going to pedestal pull. Flaffy looks to be turning in the mushroom. As Vault heads over to Agnes Cave.
I think I like this way of routing too, because since he does have the book and the boots, he'll be able to complete Desert in one go here.
That was really fortunate in the item placement leading into a very fast desert instead of having to go back and forth into it. And Flaffy unleashing the golden bee and actually taking some blue potion. Never hurts to have the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, the end game into A Link to the Past is very daunting, and you can get hurt and die quite easily, even with red mail. Better have a few safeties and blue potion.
Now, just 10 arrows on the ledge there, meaning there's no reason to go back to the ledge. They can just go straight into fighting Lamolas.
Oh man, that sprite from Luigi taking time to drink a bit of tea just before entering the dungeon.
And Flaffy finding nothing but heartache from Catfish as she saves and quits out. Meanwhile, we have Vault going into the first couple of chests for Desert Palace. Now, there's only 2 items in here, but this is a very fast dungeon to accomplish. And there's one of them, just a 5-bomb upgrade. And here's what you mentioned previously, the fact that you need boots in order to get the big key from there.
Yes, because on this torch you can have pretty much anything, up to a big key, a small key, dungeon items, or even just a progression item up there. It's randomized, you could say.
As a big key leads into a small key, so now Vault can access the east part of Desert Palace.
And those neck chests won't have any key in it, so it's definitely a downgrade. But at least you probably find an item or two inside these chests.
Since the burrito and nachos are open, these two chests could be really big to the thought process. There's the burrito. And there's the nachos. So land molas do have an item. That makes things interesting.
Of course they do. I mean, these guys have not had the seed quite easy yet.
Flaffy going ahead and pick up the big key, which will lead into that small key from before. As Vault is exiting out to the west side, which will lead up to land molas.
Now we'll see Flaffy turning around, remembering that she does not have a small key.
Oh no, she has to go check the big chest first. That's a little bit of a concern. But with so few options left on the table as to what's actually going to lead to the ocarina or something else that's a major progression item, that's something you just got to grin and bear.
At least the land molas fight will be quite fast, because Tempered Sword and Fire Rod will make short work of them, and even faster since they do have the bow and the silver arrows.
Yep, 2 spin slashes with a level 3 sword, or the hammer, the rods, plus the 1 hit from silver arrows. Land molas aren't as threatening as they used to be, especially in Randomizer.
As long as you don't need to go fight them without a fire rod and no other really weapons. I've seen a few land molas with only a hammer, and it's not an easy fight.
So the only issue with fighting land molas with silver is the lack of the silver arrows can lead to a little bit of accuracy issues, but Vault does not seem to be having any problems with that whatsoever. I'm taking out 2 in the first pass.
Third one is just playing around with him.
And the third one almost finishing Vault off because of the rock attack that it develops when it goes into the last phase of its life. But nothing interesting for the second item, so the options are getting even smaller. It looks like Mothula might be the big play here. Or Swamp even.
Oh yeah, Swamp is not a play these players want to make. Just because going into Swamp without a hook shot means they can't complete it. And double dipping is quite a thing early on, but as these seeds progress, it's a thing you don't want to do.
Oh, for sure. Flaffy going into land molas as Vault looks to be making the play to go into Swamp. Now, again, we mentioned there was about 4 to 5 chests right there, so there's a lot of opportunity for items that may be critical here.
Yeah, considering the number of items they can still check, I think Vault is making correct decision in not going into Swamp, apparently.
The way the logic's been operating in version 26, favoring possible pendant dungeons with lots of chests can lead to big rewards as opposed to checking overworld more. We're gonna get a Bombos tablet check here. And just 10 arrows for Vault's trouble.
did not pay off, but it's not a bad location to look early on like that, just because it's not that out of the way.
Yeah, you only have a couple screens to worry about losing, which isn't that much actually with the boots, so. Flaffy finishing up on land molars, didn't seem to have too much of an issue there. Now, something I've noticed in version 26 is they don't necessarily default to silver arrows if you pick up the bow first, which, if you can forget about them, it's very, very challenging to run out of ammo or potentially die to something just because you don't remember you have silvers.
Yes, it's part of the challenge of Randomizer. You need to remember that you got the other items that you can toggle, just like boomerangs or even the shovel and the flute, and the mushroom and the powder. All these items that you can forget very easily if you have them.
Also, the bottle contents can be shuffled around too. Looks like Flaffy's actually gonna go check the Mad Batter, which does not like being woken up normally and curses you with an item. And for being woken up, she is cursed with 300 rupees. So much heavy around the pockets.
You know what they say, more money, more problems.
Hyrule first world problems. As Vault goes into a swamp and gets the pots that you can actually flood the key on. There's two different chests here, or two different pots that have keys underneath them. If you flood them, you do take a major time loss because you have to exit the dungeon, go to another screen, and then come back, open the dam up again, and then go back in just to actually reverse the damage you've done. It's a
Yes.
multi-minute time loss.
It's one thing you really only do once or twice in runs because you forget it. You never forget it again. It's the kind of error that once you make it, it stays in your mind as some kind of shame.
Fortunately, those life lessons can be very helpful to your game later on. It does find the big key on this side, so checking the big chest right there, actually really good timing. Just a piece of heart for the trouble on that one, though. Vault taking the slightly slower strategy of going and getting this key first before pushing the chest down to walk back around it, so has to worry about the skeletons throwing bones, which there's no bones about that. Those are very painful things to be hit with.
Yes. Well, at least he, like we said earlier, he did not flood the key, so that's a big time loss to do that he skipped.
Very fortunate on the remembering, and then remembering to switch back, because if you don't remember to flip the switch back after you've done that, that's going to be another few seconds that you have to go back and flip the switch again. As Vault continues on to the western side of Swamp Palace, Flaffy is just entering in and will open the bauble wall.
Now, since they do not have the hook shot, they will need to go on each side on two different occasions here, as they cannot hook shot across.
A little bit of an insider strategy right there, but in the vanilla game, I don't believe you actually can do that, since you wouldn't have the hook shot at that point. Oh, and there's the vanilla hook shot. Amazing.
Looks like the game just trying to prove me wrong again. Thanks, game.
What incredible timing. Then Flaffy's going to come across that very soon. And the Titan's myth. My goodness. Swamp paying off big time.
Oh man, this has to still hurt the runners a bit when Flaffy's gonna find this, and Vault has to be saying to himself, if both these items are here, did Flaffy already get them? Because they had access to Swamp for a long time now.
Very much so. Wasn't in the like first routing decision one would normally make, but it was in the end very, very wise to do so, like sooner than later. But that pretty much evens up both of them.
Yep, and that means at this point it's still a very close race with only maybe maybe a minute and a half behind Flaffy. Not that much.
No, especially not in a race like this. They've been back and forth, and this has been exciting all the way through. Flaffy going into the western side as Vault is actually going to empty the basement out and grab 3 more chests. So the 2 that are right here, looks like they might have big items inside of them, possibly. Oh, there's the fighter shield, and there's a bowl of nachos.
So they did find at least a good progression item in this dungeon. And yes, I'm talking about the mitts, not the shield.
Oh, and there's the flute too. This dungeon has been huge the entire way through.
Yeah, this swamp has been one of the most stacked swamp I've seen so far, and it's saying something. And wow, it's gonna be making now the choices to go look around for the Cane of Samaria, and I think maybe a medallion, depending on what medallion is needed for Meyer.
Now, since Turtle Rock was, I believe, a pendant, might be interesting that we'll fix both problems if they actually have to go into Turtle Rock itself.
True, because it also might be required. We still haven't seen if Pedestal has something of value in it, which at the moment could pretty much only be a medallion it needed to enter Meyer.
That's very true. The dreams are dying for all the fans out there that are interested in getting some sort of pedestal troll seed. As Flaffy actually picks up her Titan's mitts too. Extends the hook shot in frustration. Vault making quick work of Argus, decides to save and quit out. Now, with an ocarina in your pocket, thanks to the Swamp Palace, are you going to head to Sanctuary right away to go unlock it?
Oh yeah, really. You want to activate it as soon as possible, as having the flute makes traveling in the light world very fast, very efficient.
Very much so, and it's also required to enter Misery Mire, which I believe was actually a crystal dungeon, so...
Yep, and since they found pretty much both items they needed to go check Meyer with the Titan's mitts and the flute, now we'll see soon enough if they can enter it with the correct medallion.
Now there's only a few item locations left in the overworld for Dark actually able to be checked. It does bring to wonder whether the Quack medallion is actually enough. As we get the swag ducks going for Vault here, who has just unlocked the best means of transportation and the best of boots in Hyrule. Interesting play going into the flute and immediately coming down.
Indeed, that was a correct word. Interesting.
Vault instead heading back to the Dark Worlds, choosing to skip over the Mad Batter, which didn't exactly have anything, so not really missing much.
Might be checking what's at the breadsmiths and also the purple chest at the same time before going into Meyer, which is not a bad idea. If they find Cane of Samaria, that's also an item they need to complete Meyer, so...
With seeing the vanilla hookshot in Swamp, though, it makes you wonder if it's actually going to lead to sort of troll with vanilla Kina Samaria as well.
Oh my, that's true. That's still possible. Vanilla items are all... they're always very trolly in Randomizer.
We're not having any Neapolitan ice cream here. We're having nothing. As Vault showing off the Hammer Dash strats, which is only available in the original version, patched out of the English version. And
Yeah,
there's the shovel.
Nice find.
Flaffy finishing up and making quick work of Vargas says what's in the back of her mind that she hasn't done Hammer Pegs or the wonderful Mr. Frog too. And let's see what they reward us for with our wonderful bread. No, just a refund. No big deal. Now the Mad Batter is being unlocked, which doing it in this order is actually pretty ideal for the lot.
Yeah, and just because his portal is right over, he'll be able to go back inside the Dark World, get the purple chest, and quickly bring it to the lockpicker.
I am the duck of swag. I cause a little lag, but you've got this in the bag.
Flaffy going for the swag duck now,
and if you should
and
forget
means
all
they're
the
pretty
things
much
you have
even up
left,
again.
well then here's your best bet. Just flute to 3.
Not too many more things to be required to go into go mode, so it makes you wonder what's in the back of their mind now. Now, actually having the flute in this particular part where Vault has grabbed the chest is actually very beneficial because you can actually just warp to 7 and then go one screen over and actually just unlock it without having to take the long way around. Commentator's blessing, apparently.
Oh yes, it saves a lot of time here, just because you can't run with the chest, as pressing A will abandon it.
Now, you can't dash with it, but you can also hookshot onto things to bypass that slow thing, but only 50 rupees out of it.
And we got ourselves a nice golden sword here inside of Meyer's shed.
A butter sword, what a big acquisition, makes this just impossibly easy to finish now.
To go through these bosses like butter.
And we're actually getting a shuffle check here from Vault, as Flaffy has just finished on a checkerboard game. And the shovel dash strats into a bomb upgrade. Penalized for showing off.
Oh man, that's such a nice strat to see. It's very cool looking. It's even better when you actually dig up something, because you get the same pickup on every dig.
We get a Bombos into Meyer, so they are still hunting. They're definitely not in go mode. As it looks like Flaffy is making the play to possibly go into Turtle Rock, which could be interesting, considering we don't know what the actual medallion is to get into there.
Indeed, she won't be able to get into Turtle Rock itself, but she does find where Ether is on the island here.
Bypassing Ether might come into play very, very quickly as a check what's actually required to go in here. And what do you know? It's Ether, so nice quick check into Hookshot Cave will actually get you to where you're going. Floating Island paying big time.
Now, of course, we would like to see Bombos, maybe even inside Hookshot Cave here. But, you know, you never know where you can find it. Plus, they might actually see the King of Samaria somewhere in here.
That would be a huge weight off their shoulders, as going into Turtle Rock with it just not being required is very heavy, especially if We actually have to go all the way to Trimax. That's a third bottle and half magic from Flaffy, so that's quite a bit of a leg up too.
Now we'll soon see with Vault what is inside of Super Bunny Cave.
Super Bunny Cave is noted as such as it only requires the Titan's Mitts or the hammer to get to. There is no need for the Moon Pearl to check those two chests.
Yes, as when you do fall down a hole such as these ones in changing levels, the game seems to confuse in what state you are, and you certainly be able to use items and lift or open chests.
So Flappy checking Super Bunny as Vault is going back to Light World here. Just confirming that it's Ether and going right back in the portal. So these runners are still very much neck and neck. There is virtually no time difference between them at this point.
Yep, and as somebody in chat mentioned, maybe we'll see a play to go inside Ice Palace at this point. I mean, it's definitely on the table as it does have a few items in it.
There is 3 items in Ice Palace, and Ice Palace in Go mode is a lot push if you actually need to go in there. Thanks to a little trick we know known as the Ice Palace bomb jump, which is the most famous of the bomb jumps, and Vault seems to be quite adept at them, so there may not be too much of a difficulty there. Flappy warping back to 3, looks to be going back towards Skullwoods, possibly.
She might also be going for all of the Titan's Myth stuff that Vault already did.
That's a possibility too, going towards Hammer Pang. As Vault is making the play to go into Ice. 3 items.
Yeah, 3 items in Ice, as you said, and they still haven't checked what's on pedestal. It's
The troll hype is still alive. It could very well be Mama. Which the infamous phrase, I believe it's some sort of display of fireworks or something like that, was the signal that the pedestal is actually Bombos. Flaffy also showing up the dash strats for the hammer. Both of them showing very good prowess with all the little neat tricks that have actually been going on.
Ooh, and Vault, it pays off to go into Ice as the Cane of Samaria is in the first chest.
Oh, that is huge for Vault. The Butter Sword making quick work of the Penguins, which, interesting strats. The Butter Sword and the Hook Shot are the only things that can one-shot those things, and they are very pesky to deal with.
Ah, yes. You even see sometimes runners use bombos on them just because they take so much time to kill if you don't have the proper items.
Now, this room is infamous for being very laggy, but it's the quickest way out of it with all that time does add up if you're not careful. Vault taking no prisoners and actually attempting Ice Palace bomb. As Flappy gets some allowance for her troubles. But gets it on the first try, very impressive.
Oh yes, that was very cool to see. Especially when people are using custom sprites such as the Luigi sprite or the Maiden sprite here. They don't have exactly the same height as Link, so you need better points of reference to make these bomb jumps.
That is something I'm actually concerned about as well, as different sprites is always different parts of the shadow or some don't even have shadows at all. It makes that jump incredibly hard to do.
Yeah, you tend to see a lot of runners just find maybe using the sword, or even in some cases they just find a reference point on the sprite they use and follow that. Myself, I tend to use a lot the purple chest, and I use the top of the chest as my reference point. But that's the thing I can only use with the with the chest itself.
That is something to note, that every one of those sprites is different, and that is bad. The only bad side in actually having to play with custom sprites in this randomizer, there's not really any reason not to, other than the fact you just have to learn that jump a little bit differently every time.
Yep, and it only takes a bit of practice, and once you get it down, you're good to go to use pretty much any sprite you want. It's just a matter of preference at that point.
Flaffy jumping into ice as well as Vault2 heads up the stairs into the hammer, bomb, everything room right here, which can also cause quite a bit of lag as well.
Opting to powder the bunny beam here to get a quick health refill is a pretty good idea before cold stare if he plans on going all that way.
Something interesting to note is that you can actually powder through while you're holding on to something. That's a little trick I just found about recently. And there's Bombos.
And that's it. That's go mode, guys.
The pedestal dreams have died. Flaffy going to be coming across this soon herself by the looks of it.
I can't believe both these runners have got to go inside Ice Palace with that gamble, and it's paying off big time.
Go mode Meyer is very much quicker than having to pretend certain room inside of it that requires you lighting 4 torches and costs about 45 seconds or so of lag time.
Yeah, we might still see that room depending on where the big key is, but at least it gives them a chance to not need to do it.
Sure, that's a very potential troll. I see finally letting up on them a little bit late into the game. Flaffy attempting the bomb jump here, which, as we were mentioning, it's a little bit different depending on every sprite, so getting that practice definitely helps. Flaffy choosing to actually flip the switch back. Yep. Since there doesn't seem to be anything essential on Cold Stare, though, it's not exactly a bad play. Running very low on life here, however.
Yeah, she needs to be a bit careful. I think she still has a fairy in the bottle, but still.
Still, having to spend the time to replenish.
That dodge.
Helpful. A little bit hurtful to your routing. Now, there's plenty of keys inside of Meyer, so getting locked behind a door shouldn't really ever happen. There's the big key really quick.
Yep, and now Vault will be able to go directly to Vitreous here and skip everything in sight.
Pass go if you do, collect $200.
And at this point, they pretty much have everything they might need. They have half magic, red mail, golden sword, you name it. They got everything. So the rest of the seed will probably be very fast and quite easy to complete.
So Flaffy choosing to skip the Ice Palace bomb jumps. She was low on life. It's starting to come into a little bit of a time sink here as the gap is slowly getting bigger.
Getting trolled a bit by the ice physics and those holes that quote me on this, but they tend to suck you in.
The very infamous moon room right there is actually the bane of many instances. And the hookshot actually proving to be quite a strong weapon as well, as it won those jellyfish as well. Vault completely destroying Misery Mire, not even a second thought to it.
Oh yeah, and now Vitreous will see the same fate, as because he does have silver arrows, he'll be able to one-shot every small area only one arrow, and Vitreous himself in 2 arrows.
Yep, not easy on the ammo, very easy. And just like that.
It's by far the fastest strat on Vitreous.
Vitreous is definitely one of the faster bosses if you have silvers. Him and Helmasaur King only needing 1 arrow to be defeated. Now the only thing on Vault's mind is getting back up to Death Mountain as fast as possible.
I hope he does remembers to do Skullwoods first, though.
Oh, definitely.
And he does. Good, because not remembering to do a dungeon before you have every crystal, you get a bit confused when you get to Ganon's Tower and nothing happens.
Fortunately, that Skullwoods is also extremely fast when you're in go mode. Really doing key.
Now flaafykins is also in go mode after finding her bombos inside of Ice Palace. Will be able to go quickly through these remaining dungeons.
She is about at a dungeon deficit, right? Change at the blink of an eye. We've seen what fate has actually done to these poor runners.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate at this point that she is a bit behind and she possibly feels a bit behind, but it's very hard to keep your focus at this point and just not lose and track what you're doing, what you have to do next.
For sure, and as Vault heads up towards Mothula, now with half magic, fire, butters, this boss is gonna be a complete cakewalk. As Flaffy is heading towards the first key of Misery Mire. Fortunately, not having to do the lantern room is actually really beneficial.
Yep. I think, as you said a bit earlier, is around like 45 seconds. Just sit there and just needing to wait up on lighting all these torches.
It's even worse when you only have the lantern and you don't have
the... That's true.
How many hits does it take to get to the center of a Mothula? The moral you never know. A 3. As Flaffy heads towards the basement of Misery Mire.
And now Volt completed his last crystal dungeon. He'll be going up Death Mountain shortly and into Ganon's Tower. Now, since they already do have every safety in the game, except maybe like the mirror shield, this is going to be a very fast Ganon's Tower too, as once they do have a few small keys and the big key, they're going to be up Ganon's Tower and finish the seed right along.
Very fast indeed, as it's all about execution at that point in the that you actually have resources just in case something goes very, very wrong, which Ganon's Tower can definitely cause a lot of problems if you haven't practiced lately.
Indeed, the gauntlet is not very easy to go through, and even with they have a lot of hearts as they do in red mail, it's still very punishing. The BMOS will stop at nothing to push you around the room into spikes and into enemies, and then there's ice physics. It's they're not fun rooms to go through.
The chat always is getting way ahead of us, and remembering that something fond in the community that we'd like to do every time we have to Ganon's Tower is there's, I believe, 22 or 23 locations that the big key could be in Ganon's Tower, and we're going to try and guess where it is. I'll guess number 13.
As usual, I'm gonna say number 2. Now, usually I go a sword upgrade in first chest and big key in second chest, but something tells me that can't be true this time.
Vault getting spin speed to make very short work of those hammer pegs to just walk right past Turtle Rock and say, no thanks, I'm good. Sorry, you just leave all your stuff in there. Something interesting of note is that those Lionels that you really only encounter once during the entire run, twice if your routing is a little bit different, is those cannot be damaged whatsoever by the Master Sword, and you will just bounce into them and take tons of damage if you don't have Tempered or Gold one. Flaffy making her way to Skullwoods right now. Still about a dungeon behind, but again, Skullwoods was very quick, so even faster for her.
Looks like Vault is opting to go on the right side first. It's pretty easy tactic that I see often. First chest having bombs and the second chest having a full heart. Since there is no small key, he won't gamble on the tile room just yet.
Sound strategy. Tile room's generally the last thing you want to worry about since it takes quite a bit, probably about another 45 seconds to a minute just for that stuff to clear out. Torch not really having too much of interest for Vault. Flaffy heading through the Gibdos room with, if you don't have half magic, it starts to get into your backyard resource conservation, but she has no problem with it whatsoever. And there's the 4th bottle for Vault.
And he also found, just in the chest before, the bug net, which we might see a bit later on if Vault decides to swag it up a bit.
Also one of the wonderful safety items that you actually can catch fairies that you hit with the magic powder and actually makes your life a lot easier. As Flappy enters Mothman. Making short work of Mothula there, no issues with any sort of health or anything. Always a plus.
Still gave her a pretty decent fight considering all the hazards that are inside this room.
That chest also being nothing of it.
And now we're up inside the randomizer room. 4 chests in there. Let's hope for a big key already.
The reason why it's called the randomizer room is this is the only time you'll ever see this unlocked during a run because it normally has nothing of value to anybody. There's the big key right there. If you guess that chest, you are a complete winner.
Since he does have a small key, he'll be able to safely go up Ganon's Tower.
If you guessed that chest correctly, by the way, you win a delicious plate of bacon. Vault heading into the gauntlet, which can give people a little bit of trouble, but we're going to see how execution pays off big time here in the best possible way. Flaffy happening up Death Mountain, not too far behind either. Taking a little bit of the slower route through Death Mountain and
Yeah, at this point, the runners are probably starting to sweat a bit and not seeing that their opponent has not that done yet. They might still think, maybe I can win this, and start making a few small mistakes here and there. That's important to not give in to nerves.
especially approaching the 2-hour mark, which we're very close to seeing right now. While continuing on through the gauntlet as Flaffy heads by the old pyramid heads. I believe they were the Lionels from Zelda 1. Seven crystals will unlock you a giant tower of torture. Sounds like a great deal.
Especially if you're a villain. But it looks like Vault has switched to Fire Rod to use on these guys, as it's a lot less laggy.
Not a bad strategy at all, actually.
And as you can see, hitbox are quite a myth in this game, as he just hit the wall and somehow hit the enemy at the same time.
Going with the silver arrow strats again. Gets 1 on the first pass. And just misses the second shot, so this will be a 3-pass run by the looks of it. Oh no.
Landmall is having none of us, just wasting so much time.
So that third Landmola finally goes down as Flaffy is running through the basement as fast as she can, definitely wondering where Vault actually is.
And considering how linear this seed has been in general, you gotta say to yourself, my opponent must be like almost done already. It's very nerve-wracking.
Oh, and Flaffy takes the dive and actually has to reset the room. Fortunately, it's pretty fast with the hook shot. Execution coming into big play here, and definitely, as you were saying, nerves are definitely a big thing once it starts getting towards the 2-hour mark. Vault making quick work of the torch room as Flaffy looks to be heading towards the randomizer room. And the skeleton still trolls her, so... As we head into the mini Helmasaur room on Vault's end, where having that second big key, or the second small key is actually really mandatory. I actually forgot that earlier.
Oh yeah, you need 2 small keys, but fortunately you always get a small key from one of these 2 Helmasaurs, mini Helmasaurs.
And there's not always a small key in the chest, so that's definitely a gamble if you decide to go up to get Gauntlet through with only like 1 key. That's why some runners will actually take the time and grab a little bit of 2 or even 3 sometimes.
Vault gets through troll, the troll boss here, as he does tend to just waste time and knock you down into spikes.
Skips the final chest of the game as if doesn't care about that at all. Makes really fast work with the cape strats through the treadmill cat room. Named so because there's so many treadmills and ice and sorts of fun stuff that it makes you look like you're a cat running on a treadmill.
Now we're seeing Vault going up against Agahim 2, the rematch, and it looks like it's giving him some pretty ugly patterns so far.
Now the 2 shadows will always fire regular magic shots, but Agna will actually still fire blue balls on occasion. Flaafykins entering the gauntlet now. not too far behind, so this is still a very close race.
Indeed. If Vault has a death or falls a few times, she might be able to catch up. So this is definitely still a race.
Commentator's curse as Vault finishes off Agnum 2 and heads straight to Ganon. Having enough resources will definitely put Vault's mind at ease here. Flaffy heading through the spike room right there. And here we go with the silly Ganon quotes, which, since version 18, I don't think I've seen the Weetabix thing that this randomizer was famous for. So it's really unfortunate that we lost that one. But instead we get a lot of song references. Flaffy a little bit low on life here, but she's heading through very... Still has that fairy for backup, and there's always more in the itself, so she's probably not worried too much.
Yeah, it's only at this time you're only worrying very much about your time and where your opponent is. So trying to cut a bit of corners here and there, trying to not get hit too much. It looks like Vault does get the torch glitch, and thus making the fight that much faster.
So the torch glitch is actually interesting. That's actually in both versions, English and Japanese. If you manage to light that left torch before both of them go out, you only have to worry about lighting the left torch and not both for the rest of the fight. It's a huge time save. As Vault defeats Ganon.
Yeah, with the first round having 3 arrows in and then having a second round with his last arrow, it looks like Vault will have an official SRL time of 2 hours, 1 minute, and 49 seconds. And that was quite a good seed.
Congratulations to Vault for making that an exciting race, and that was just back and forth all the way through. It was a beautiful thing to watch. I'm glad to be part of that. So Flaffy's still heading up towards the gauntlets. The Canis and Mario strats through these Wizrobe rooms make really fast work of it, usually killing 3 for 1 special.
Yeah. Flaffy is not far behind here, climbing Ganon's tower and trying her best to get through this very trolly room with the firebar.
Fortunately, with this room, the vanilla logic knows that you have some difficulty with it normally, with or without the boot, so it does give you an extra bit of time to actually light all 4 torches and get through the door without shutting up. Flaffy heading through Mini Helmasaur room, taking the silver arrows to him as divine punishment. And grabbing the extra key that she's going to need to actually finish the seed.
It's a very fortunate refill right here. It's going to help out a bit with these last 2 bosses.
The magic refill is actually really beneficial, especially if you have half magic and cape. You can, as you saw earlier, make very short work of Ganon. Using the dash strats with Butter's sword, making very fast work of Troll Dorm too. Not a problem at all. Grabs the final chest, which is just the bowl of nachos. Heading through the cat on a treadmill room, making... That was also a very good idea. Saves a lot of frustration.
Yeah, the cape here is not necessary to go through this room, but it just removes all the challenge that is in this room. And certainly at this point, you just want to get the run over with.
Flaffy starting off with a double at Agnum. Pretty strong right there. Playing a game of tennis when it's 3 people on the other side of the net and one of you, a little bit of a challenge sometimes. And with Vault win, there's actually the 3-way race-off that's going to probably end up happening pretty soon.
Oh yeah, that's true. We got a hype race coming up because of that.
I'm super excited to see who's going to do that. At 0-4, Flaffy is done for the tournament, but she's done a lot for this tournament, so just want to shout out to both Vault and Flaffy. Please go ahead and follow them. They're really worth your time, as you've seen by this incredible race so far. Flaffy jumping into Ganon, trying to finish the fight.
We will be pulling in Vault soon enough to get his interview.
As Flaffy is making Magic Cape strat. Incredibly.
Hello.
Welcome. Congratulations on your victory.
Why, thank you. Oh,
What was
man.
on your mind through all of that?
I cannot believe I got bottlenecked like that so hard. Like, 2 real heavy bottlenecks and then one that I kind of created myself. But I did everything but Agina before Aghanim. And then I did everything but Mad Batter before I decided, you know what, Hookshot or something progressive is probably in Swamp. And so yeah, that was the only thing, is because it bottlenecked so hard, I thought that it would be fairly close. I haven't pulled it up. I don't even know where my opponent is.
Flaffy is on the final phase of Ganon right now. It was a...
Yeah, that was pretty all neck and neck almost all of the race long. It was quite interesting.
And Flaffy gets the thought done with 2:07.26. Very, very close race all the way until the end.
Yeah, just over 5 minutes. Pretty danged close.
Was there anything going through your mind when you were through that bottleneck, as you were mentioning back when you had to go into Ice Palace and Swamp?
Swamp, like I said, because there was so... I mean, the scary thing with Swamp, it was less scary with Aghanim, because Aghanim, the only thing that could have progressed me was Power Glove, and there was only one location. There was still only one location when I did Swamp, but the scary part was the fact that there were like 3 items that would have progressed me at that point. I could have got Flute, I could have got Gold Glove. Like, that was the thing, is that it was like, even though there was still only one location spot, it was, there were more options for it, and so that kind of had me second-guessing myself until we got Hookshot, and then it was like, freaking treasure trove. Hookshot into Gold Glove into Flute, just like back to back to back, is like, well, it's 1.5 items from Go mode, since I, couldn't check Swamp, or rather Mire up to that point, and I did have a coin. Made it definitely seem worth. And then as far as the Ice Palace one went, it seemed like no matter what my decision was, I was going to get about 4 items, and so it was tough to decide how V26 it was going to be. I'd already gone into a pendant dungeon rather that was non-required. There was nothing in Hera, and then I don't know how I messed that bomb jump up so bad. I've never done that in my life. Picked up the bomb before, let alone like 7 times in a row.
Now that bomb jump in Tower of Hera is actually one of the more hard ones to pull off because of the small, cramped, confined spaces. As we welcome Flaffy into the call, congratulations on your finish.
Hey.
I think you both did amazing through all of this, and when you go back, you'll see how close you were through all of this up until the very end. So,
It's
what was on
definitely
your mind, Flaffy?
The closest to finished I've had. How'd you like me, like 100%ing everything before I got to the items I needed?
I feel the
that's
pain.
pretty
I
much
really
how it
do.
went, I think.
Yeah. Oh boy, Swamp. Man, could have done that so much earlier.
Yup.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we talked about, and it was definitely a gamble to go early on without the hook shot, but it was the thing that he could have gone into it so much earlier that it would have made a very big difference in time if one of you would have, I don't know, been in there as soon as you could.
I noticed I could get in there so early, but I'm like, man, no, hookshot. It's got to be somewhere.
There's so many places that we have open, and no hook shot, and so many progressive items. No gold glove, no hook shot, no flute, only one coin, no cane. Like, there's so much to be found. Oh, it's all in one dungeon.
Yeah, it was definitely very trolly of the sea to just push you back into a corner where you have to go inside the only place left, and everything is in there.
God. Now I'm wondering where the ice ride was. It's probably somewhere
Neither of
in
you
T-Rock.
found it.
Nope.
Considering this logic, it's probably like inside Turtle Rock or something.
Everything else was vanilla. Why not?
Yeah. I kind of wish I had gone to Aghanim sooner rather than run over and do, what did I do? Sick Kid?
Yeah, I ran into Sick Kid, but I didn't do Agina. I was like, I can't leave 2 items. I feel like I could leave 1 item behind, but 2 items is a bit risky, because that's how I lost my first match. Because I went and did non-required Aghanim when there was Agina with Moon Pearl still left. And I was like, I don't want that to happen again. That's like 7 minutes.
I went to both of them, and I had nothing left when I went to Aghanim.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, execution-wise, I think I did pretty much amazing compared to what I've been doing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you've been like low hearts a lot of times, and all these times we were wondering, oh, does she still have a fairy?
I
don't
had a fairy
know.
just in case.
It was really cool to see you like pull off most of all of their scene, just being just a few seconds behind Vault all the time, and sometimes even in the lead.
Oh man, I gotta see where I was in the lead.
It was back and forth the entire way. It was so much fun to watch. Like, having all those resources in the back of your head, though, must have been amazing. Like, for your thought process, you're thinking, okay, if in a spot, I have something.
Yeah. I was freaking out when I left Spike Cave because I'd left the ether tablet there. And I had an ether tablet still left when I went into Swamp, and I'm like, I swear to God, if the hookshot is on ether tablet, I'm going to blow.
Oh no.
And thankfully, it was in the spot where I have found hookshot lots of times.
Speaking of which, what was your thought process with Pedestal all this time?
I figured that if I had to go to Ice Palace, if I didn't find either the cane to get into Turtle Rock or
Exactly.
or Ice Rod as well, I was like, okay, I got the cane, I can go into T-Rock, but I'm gonna keep on going through ice and see what I get. And I got my Go Mode Bombos.
Yeah, that was my exact same decision. Was, well, right now I'm still locked behind Kane, and Kane gets me into a pendant. So until that happens, I'm just gonna keep putting off Skullwoods and checking Pedestal up until I can find Kane. Because I mean, it's just really not worth it to go and. I mean, it could be worth it, but not really. I mean, the only thing it could be there at that point in time was Bombos, but
yeah,
It just seemed like a out of the way trip since I was still completely locked out of a dungeon.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was pretty good routing overall to go inside Ice Palace at that point. And as you said, not knowing what was on pedestal might be playing a bit on you, but at that point, you already found all the other items inside the swamp. We were just wondering really early on when you got the book, like, when are we going to see a pedestal check?
At that point, I was like, based on the items I can get, and not being able to get into all the pendant dungeons, I wasn't worrying about it. And by the time I thought maybe I should check pedestal, I was looking at them and I was like, okay, it's only Cane and Bombos, and only Bombos can be on the pedestal. So
something interesting with the way the logic was actually taking you when you got through with Agna 1 and had the option to go to Catfish or Pod. What was going through your minds at that point?
Pod had more stuff.
I already had Mirror in the way to beat both 5 and 6, so I was like, well, can't get to a lot of Dark World right now, running out of options. 5 and 6 opens up another option that I can get to, Fat Fairy. 5 and 6 was just like the obvious call to me. Do 5 and 6, save and quit, and then mess around in Southern Dark World until Fat Fairy was best to route in. When I found early gloves, I felt like Fat Fairy was immediately routable, and then come back, save and quit, and take that Dark World portal south of Link's house, and do the rest of what you had access to, which is now everything, because you found glove.
Which ended up being an amazing call on both your part.
Yeah. One thing I did wrong is after I defeated Moldorm, I had tracked the pendant and crystal for Desert and Hera, and I swapped them.
Oh, so you thought you were doing a required dungeon?
Mm-hmm.
No, I went in there knowing it was non-required, and then screwed up pretty heavily, and that sent me on a decent little tilt for Death Mountain. I had to calm it down.
I thought I had the mitts when I went up there. I tried to go to Dark Death Mountain while I was up there, and like, oh, crap. Because I went up there, like, routing Dark Death Mountain in my brain, and until I tried to pick up that level 2 rock, I was like, oh, I don't have mitts.
Yeah, it happens a lot in DCs where you kind of forgot what level of strength you have, especially early on when you find a hammer before the gloves. You're like, cool, I can access like Dark World now, but not really. But I'll say this was an incredible seed to commentate and to watch, and please leave a follow to these incredible runners that gave us just a very, very fun seed to watch and to cheer on. And also don't forget our tracker, Little Gabes, who did an amazing job. And of course, Alvi, who also restreamed this race. Leave a follow to all these people. And of course, to my co-commentator, Lyra.
No, why would you do that?
It was very fun commentating with you tonight. I believe we did a pretty good job.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I appreciate both of you taking the time out of your day to make an incredible race for us as well.
Gotta get them in. Yeah, now I've got one more. We've got a tiebreaker, a 3-way first place tie going on in our pod now. Yeah. So
as I was going up, I'm like, oh man, am I gonna win? Am I gonna win? Am I gonna win? Am I gonna get rid of a 3-way tie?
And I was sitting there going, please God almighty, the other guys are gonna be so mad, because I've been talking to Jay about it. I'm like, hey, what do you think the odds are? He's like, I don't know, man. Still a lot to be played.
I'm getting better.
So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, it's like Flappy's getting better every time. Maybe she's gonna beat you this time. But this is the closest I've been to beating someone, though.
Indeed, it's not easy at all to go through these races. As I've seen most of players, even in the secondary tournament, they're getting very good, which makes me think that the next tournament might actually have so many good players in it. It's incredible.
The next tournament's gonna be amazing. Not that
So
this one
with-
isn't, but you know.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to say another GG to both of you guys. Congratulations on you, Vault, for making a three-way tiebreaker race happen. And I hope you guys still have fun making races outside of even the tournament, Flaffy, as I've seen your skill improve so much that you probably won't stop playing just because you're not in the tournament race.
I'm gonna stop playing. Also, I'm gonna be commentating and tracking a lot more. Actually, I don't think I can commentate and track more than I have been. But I'm gonna keep that up. It's just so much fun being here.
I look
Indeed.
forward to hopefully commentating with you again sometime. Both Dynasty and Vault and Flaffy. It'd be great to have you all one time. Any more thoughts before we take the credits and just ride on into the sunset?
No, I think that's about it. I appreciate you guys for taking your time to commentate the race and everybody involved in this business. It's been a lot of fun.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all, and have a good night. And see you next race.
Yep. Be sure to toss these guys one more follow, and thanks for watching, everybody. We're going to see you again in the future. See you next mission.